electric cars, electronic cars, perhaps? No, just electric, battery-powered, lithium-powered cars, which are supposed to be mega rad, but they're also kind of expensive. Well, Consumer Reports is now raising reliability questions about the Tesla Model S, which used to be the best rated car ever on Consumer Reports, but that's kind of changed. When Consumer Reports reviewed the Tesla Model S electric car earlier this year, it liked the car so much that it actually had to recalibrate its rating scale. Yeah, pretty dang good car. Several months on, though, the publication is a little bit less enamored. Each year, Consumer Reports surveys its audience to get a picture of how reliable different car models are in the real world. Organizations like JD Power do something similar to that, too. This is all coming from Ars Technica, by the way. More than 1,400 Tesla owners, I didn't know there were that many, sent in data about their electronic vehicles, and the complaints chronicled an array of detailed and complicated maladies, the magazine now reports. But you do have to keep in mind, by the way, just to be perfectly fair, it's a new kind of concept. It's a new technology. There are going to be bugs, right? There's going to be a bug or two in a brand new product like the Model S. Now, that's not defending Tesla, saying, oh, don't question Tesla. Is it bad? Who cares? No, I'm saying that these things do happen. There are glitches in any technology, and especially a brand new one. And that's just how it is. By the way, this is just now coming out. Joe Biden says that he will not run for president. That's just now coming out over the wires. Current Vice President Joe Biden is now saying that he is not going to be running for president. So there's no hope of President Joe Biden, although, of course, he could be nominated to be VP again, which could happen. Could have Hillary Biden 2016, who knows? But no, VP Joe Biden says that he is not going to be running for president. He's doing a statement right now, actually. The president is next to him on his right, and his wife is next to him on his left, and he's giving a statement about how he is not going to be running for president. So there's not any hope of a President Joe Biden. So those of you who were rooting for Mr. Biden, that is not going to be happening. Issues are including, by the way, in the Model S are including squeaks and rattles, something which might be a little bit more noticeable now thanks to the car's lack of engine noise. That's kind of a problem too. The Model S is a really quiet car, which means that it's a really loud car. What do I mean by that? Well, when you have a car that has like next to no engine noise and it starts to squeak and rattle and get out of alignment or what have you, you really kind of notice that, especially on the Model S, it seems, because it's kind of a really, really quiet car. It's not just, oh, it's a quiet car. No, it's a really, really quiet car because it's electric, and electric cars are really quiet. And yeah, so that's a bit of a problem too. But again, that's not like reliability problems so much as it is just noise problems. So, I mean, a loud car that still functions well is a well-functioning car that happens to be loud. Overall, Consumer Reports found reliability was down actually compared to 2014. Older cars in particular appear to be having the most problems. But again, they're lithium-powered cars. It's lithium-ion batteries, battery banks of lithium-ion batteries in these Model S's. They're not going to be like the height of reliability because lithium-ion batteries, for anyone who's ever had a smartphone knows, they go bad. They go bad not like super quickly, but they do go bad. It's not like these particular batteries are indestructible and they'll never go bad or anything like that. No, it's just they go bad sometimes. It's not like a huge deal. It just is what it is. And if you are someone who pays money for this sorts of thing, it kind of, well, I guess that would lead to problems for you, wouldn't it? If you're someone who paid $30,000 for a car that has now basically gone bad, that's a problem, but it's not like a knock against Tesla as much as it's a knock against the lithium-ion technology. But anyway, Consumer Reports has updated its scale on the Tesla Model S, and it's unfortunate, but it's really not surprising considering the life of lithium-ion batteries. I'm kind of surprised that this might not have been mentioned in the Consumer Reports report in the first place. Kind of odd, because you'd think that someone would have noticed that, hey, by the way, lithium-ion batteries don't last forever. I had a Lenovo A850 phablet, and yes, that is actually what it's called. It's called a phablet. Haha. I had a A850 phablet from Lenovo, and the battery started dying anyway about maybe a year into its life, and that's not bad, especially since you can replace the battery. I have right now a Motorola Moto G. It's a very pretty phone. I love it, but the battery's not removable. That's not like a killer thing for me because you can take it to different places to get a battery replaced. Cell surgeon, of course, I could go to and have the battery fixed most likely. So it's not like a killer thing for me, but it is a problem. It's not killer because it's a great phone, but it's just annoying that I can't do self-maintenance because I'm really big into that whole idea of fixing things myself. If I have a problem with my computer, I just fix it. If I have a problem with the power supply, I fix it. If there's a problem with a laptop, I try to fix it, but I usually can't. I like to fix things. And if I can't, then I get annoyed. And when it comes to the Moto G, it's not like I can just buy a new battery because, again, it's an internal battery. Now, there is somewhat good reason for that, though, because it is a waterproof phone for the most part. It's like 3 feet waterproof, put that in quotes. Basically, I could drop into a puddle. It would be okay. I could get on a water ride at Lake Winnie and it would be fine. So it's not like, again, that's not really a killer thing. It's a feature, not a bug. That's what it is. So it's annoying, but it is what it is. Well, speaking of annoying, but is what it is, Apple has been facing some questioning from the feds, and now there's an iPhone which the feds cannot unlock. And so cops are now turning to Apple for help. On Tuesday, a New York federal judge told Apple that he is not happy, according to Ars Technica, with the company's response as to whether a law originally written in 1789 applies in a 21st century context. Or put another way, can the American legal system compel Apple to hand the government the keys to unlock an iPhone? In its filing one day earlier, Apple lawyers told a federal judge in New York that it is impossible for the company to help unlock an iPhone 8 or iOS 8 iPhone in a hypothetical criminal case. In this case, however, Apple noted the phone in question is running iOS 7, and that changes the calculus a little bit. It says, as a general matter, however, certain user-generated active files on an iOS device that are contained in Apple's native apps can be extracted. That's what Ken Dreifach, as an attorney representing Apple, wrote in the company's 7-page filing. Apple cannot, however, extract email, calendar entries, or any third-party app data. Little is known about this case, which remains under seal, but federal authorities have obtained a search warrant to search for the locked device. So, again, the federal courts are doing the legal thing here. There's a search warrant that's been obtained, and I mean, there's a search warrant. So obviously the feds can search whatever you want or whatever they want, so long as they have a search warrant for it. So that's not really a problem. The problem here is not really one of the feds infringing your privacy so much as it's a problem of them not being able to get into something which they have a warrant to get into. And that does lead to some problems, but not like the biggest problems on earth. Well, put it that way. Because on the one hand, I don't want anyone getting into my phone. And if the feds can't get into my phone, cool. That's fine with me. But if the feds can't get into someone else who's maybe a terrorist, you don't know, who has a lock on his phone and they have a warrant to get into that phone, is that really a huge problem, or is it just something that we're making a mountain out of a molehill? I mean, if they have the person in custody, maybe they're needing evidence. And the way that the feds perceive they need to get evidence is through phones. And if feds can't do that, the feds perceive that to be a problem. Is it, though? We're not sure because, again, the case is under seal. This investigation is yet another example of the invocation of the All Writs Act, which is an 18th century federal law, which simply allows the courts to issue a writ or order which would compel a person or company to do something. For some time now, prosecutors have turned to courts to try and force companies to help in situations where it is otherwise stymied. But bringing Apple into a case like this is kind of new. But again, it's also not new that Apple would take a stance the way Apple has taken a stance. Apple has to value privacy a lot, at least outwardly. I don't know what Apple says about privacy inwardly because I have suspicions. I can't prove it, but I have suspicions that Apple has quite a few dealings with the feds. Nonetheless, Apple seems to be kind of spiting them. And that is, to me, kind of positive because I don't like them. But on the other hand, it's possibly stopping legit law enforcement from going on. So it's kind of a tough situation. But Apple, again, has to outwardly embrace privacy. Otherwise, they'll lose consumer confidence. It will lose consumer confidence. That's a big deal because consumers right now really care about privacy, especially following the Edward Snowden debacle. that was a problem for the feds. Trust me, that was a big problem, to the point where senators wanted to actually kill Edward Snowden. They wanted him dead. So if the feds want someone dead, he's probably an okay guy. I mean, some exceptions, Fidel Castro probably wasn't that great, but some exceptions, right? But if the feds want him dead, he probably has something interesting to say at the very least. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. And we'll get into that in perhaps another show, talking about Edward Snowden exclusively. Hey, by the way, today is Back to the Future Day. So if you haven't watched Back to the Future 2, you need to now go watch Back to the Future. It's a wonderful movie. I love it. The first one, the second one. And I'm really not that big of a fan of the third one, I do have to admit. I like it a lot, but I don't think it's as good as the second one. The second one's my favorite because I love the view of what 2015 is supposed to be like, especially considering how 2015 is. It's in some ways very similar and in some ways not. So on the next segment today, we're going to be talking about how the future has changed from what they saw back in the 80s to what we have today. Now, of course, this is a stylized view of the future, which was had back in the Back to the Future days. But still, nonetheless, it is an interesting view of how we were supposed to be living in the current day. Now, I do not think Spielberg actually thought that there would be 19 Jaws movies by 2015. At least I hope not, because that would mean like a movie every 3 years or so, which is actually not a bad time frame to be cranking out movies. Plus, the idea of the summer blockbuster was still kind of new at the time. But anyway, we're going to talk about the future, or the present, and how it's different from what we had before my time, we'll say. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose is up at 1, by the way, here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com.
This is a modern world. This is the modern world. What kind of fool do you think I am? Just think I know nothing of
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Former VP nominee Paul Ryan says he'll give colleagues till Friday to decide if they'll unite behind him as the next House Speaker. The current one wants a vote for a nominee next Wednesday.
I think Paul Ryan would make a great speaker, but this decision is up to the members. And I thought last night went very well, and hopefully by the end of the week we'll have a nominee.
House Speaker John Boehner a short while ago, a massive recall from one of the largest car makers in the world.
Toyota is recalling 6.5 million vehicles worldwide, including 2.7 million vehicles in North America, for a defective power window switch that Toyota says can overheat, melt, and lead to fires.
Fox Radio's Jeff Manasso, and it's Back to the Future Day. That's a day some characters traveled from 1985 to 2015 in the sci-fi film trilogy's second installment back in 1989. Fox News, we report.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
The future is now. Well, Back to the Future is now, I guess. Today is October the 21st, 2015, which is, of course, the day which Marty McFly arrived in 2015. So in Twin Pines, or Pine Valley, the Twin Pines Mall, and then Pine Valley is where he is, I think. It's been a while. Should be somewhere in, I guess, California, the Midwest, whichever state he's supposed to be in. Sometime today, Marty McFly will be arriving, and he's arriving into an awful alternate future where there are ads which can invade your personal space, holographic sharks which will attempt to eat you, and all sorts of awful things. The future was a little bit wild in Back to the Future, but fortunately we live in our 2015 where it is not exactly that way. And we actually have a caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
You know what's interesting? How fantasy becomes reality, because kids that grew up with Star Trek invent things that they've seen on Star Trek, and that's been so influential. It's almost like they're not predicting the future, but they're creating doors that open automatically, so on and so forth. And these kids become engineers and say, "I want to invent that."
Right, and actually, you keep doing this. You stole my point from me because that's what I was going to be talking about.
But let me say, I really called about the privacy issue.
Okay.
And I have a question for you.
Sure.
This is going to take you back to studying the intent of the Fourth Amendment. Can a government, even with a search warrant, look into your private phone records? Is that not you? And are you not, by extension, then testifying against yourself?
Right.
Not like a good where you have, marijuana or cocaine or whatever you may have illegal. But if they actually look into your phone and see something in there, are you testifying against yourself? And is that a prohibition based on your Fifth Amendment protection of not having to give evidence against yourself? I want you to respond to that and think about it.
All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, the thing with that is, because that would be then a Fifth Amendment question, sort of in conjunction with a Fourth Amendment question, we do like to separate these things, which is kind of interesting because we do like to separate Fourth and Fifth and First and Second. They all play together, right? It's not like a segregated system. It's a big old playground where everybody plays together, and everybody in this case is all the different amendments of the Constitution. The Fifth Amendment is actually pretty clear about how, you can't testify against yourself. So your protection against that. The Fourth Amendment is also pretty clear about protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation is in the Fourth Amendment. So that's very important. There has to be oath or affirmation or an affidavit, which is what we would call it today, saying that, I believe there is this information in this phone. We need a search warrant to get it. And then if you are on the stand being questioned about this information, which is on your phone, technically, I would say, yeah, you would be testifying against yourself, which would be a violation of your Fifth Amendment rights. Now, of course, you never have to actually say anything. That is something that does have to be kept in mind. You're not at any point compelled to say anything. So there is that to be kept in mind too. Like you see in the cop movies or the cop shows all the time. My mom watches Blue Bloods like all day. It's the only show she seems to watch. That and Law and Order. I don't know why, because I'm always criticizing the cops on these shows. Like, not that I am the best cop ever, because I'd probably be a terrible one, but mostly because I would do nothing. But when I watch these shows, I'm thinking like, well, that, he violated his rights there. And, oh, well, there, he kind of was very aggressive towards this guy for no reason. Or there, he punched a guy who turned out to be a wrong guy. All these different things. I criticize him a lot. And it makes my mom upset, but I don't care because it's funny. But I watch these shows and they have them in the interrogation room, like right after they've arrested them. They've arrested them, they've hauled them off, and they're in this interrogation room and they're grilling the guys, slamming their hands on the table. We know you know where Carlos said he is, and we want you to tell me where the meth is getting in to our good city in New York City. All this stuff. And it's just like, that doesn't happen for one. And for another one, all he has to do is say, I'm not saying anything. Guess what? Fifth Amendment, buddy. Get out of my face. It's just like, ask for a lawyer. At that point, get a lawyer. I'm not going to say anything without my lawyer present. That's all you got to say. Oh, he lawyered up. He's one of those guys who lawyered up. Well, yeah, I am one of those guys who lawyered up because guess what? I don't want this information being used against me. Sorry. That's just how it is because it's me versus you now. You're not working with me. You're working against me at this point. So, yeah, I'm lawyering up. But yeah, if there's information being taken from your cell phone and you're called to the stand to answer to that, you are testifying against yourself in that regard. So that is a kind of a big problem. And that's also kind of illegal on the other hand, too. The feds love to do things that are kind of illegal, like slightly illegal, but no one's really going to call them out on that. And I would be the one guy who would say, look, this is illegal. You're violating my Fifth Amendment right, and I'm going to sue you for it if you win the case. So yeah, kind of an issue, to say the least. Well, this is Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240, by the way. We are everywhere. You can listen to Hot News Talk Radio on hotnewstalkradio.com. If you go to Twitter, then search for Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, where you report the world decides. We always love your wonderful tweets, which you tweet at us on Twitter, which you can always go to see all of our lovely 4,000 something tweets. When we break the 5,000 mark, we'll let you know. Probably going to be tomorrow. Right now we have 4,098 tweets on Twitter. So if you want to read all 4,098 tweets, which we have on Twitter, then I would encourage you to do so. Also, you can check us out on TuneIn for your smartphone. Just go to your smartphone and then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can listen to us streaming live on your smartphone that way. Or you can just go to hotnewstalkradio.com on your smartphone and listen to us streaming live that way as well. Go to Facebook and like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And of course, you should always watch us on YouTube. Instead of watching TV, which is really just mindless nonsense like Blue Bloods and Law and Order, you should watch us on YouTube because it's a much better option anyway. Just go to YouTube and then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can watch us streaming live on the Hot News Cam right here at Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. Now, the point which the caller stole from me, I hate it when he does that too, is that the media which we watch greatly influences us in a way which we perhaps often don't think about, but it does. Media we watch influences how we look at how things should be in the future. Think about Star Trek. Star Trek influenced us hugely. The flip phone was actually inspired by the communicator in Star Trek because we wanted to do that motion, the flipping thing. It's so cool. We wanted to do that. And so we did that. We made the smartphone. No, I didn't make the smartphone, but the flip phone, I should say, was made by some engineer at, I believe, Nokia. Maybe it was Motorola. Either way, made the smartphone, the flip phone. And now we had the flip phone. And now we have the candy bar phone, which does not have the cool flippy sound or the flippy motion, but oh well. You can still get a flip phone if you want one, I guess, from like Cricket or like that old people thing. But anyway, also Back to the Future is inspiring us in a way that billions of dollars are being poured in, or at least millions of dollars are being poured into different projects for hoverboards, where people are actually really wanting hoverboards. Now, there is such a thing as a super magnet, which would be mercury in some cases that's super cooled with liquid nitrogen so that it becomes a super magnet. It's a superconductor. The problem with that is that it's hard to keep it at that temperature for a really long time because you're super cooling a superconductor to make it, or a semiconductor to make it a superconductor, and then it levitates, and it's a whole big thing. But you can actually technically make a hoverboard out of one of those, and it has been done. But the problem is you have to keep refilling it with liquid nitrogen. It's really expensive. But anyway. There's also hoverboards which work with magnetic levitation, maglev hoverboards. And the problem with those is you have to have a copper floor. Copper's kind of expensive. It's also really valuable, not just like monetarily valuable. It's actually really valuable for making things. So seeing floors made out of copper is kind of unlikely. You can, I guess, hoverboard around in circles within an old school boiler room, but that's about it. Sorry. The hoverboard's a cool idea, but it's also kind of impractical. I mean, who needs one anyway? And also, it seems hugely expensive, especially with today's technology, hugely expensive. Maybe someday in the future we'll have hoverboards, but right now, I think I'll stick with my skateboard, to be quite honest with you. I might get a moped just to compensate. I don't know. But no, the hoverboard is not really a thing. Another thing that's not really a thing right now is the holographic shark that comes out and bites your head off if you don't go watch Jaws 19. Which I guess is nice because I don't really want that to be a thing. But holographic technology is actually here. Did you see Tupac performing at, I just blanked, I think it was at Coachella, I'm wanting to say. It's one of those festivals I didn't go to, which is all of them. Tupac appeared in holographic form, and actually Michael Jackson did as well. I think they're wanting to bring back Biggie, but that would be a little bit more expensive, more surface area. So yeah, I mean, holographic images are certainly possible. You can have a holographic projection that appears to be 3D. It does work. And it's actually not nearly as hard as you might think. I saw a video not too long ago of a guy who just cut up a CD case into sort of a trapezoidal shape, set it in the center of his smartphone, and played a YouTube video which had a shape on all sides. And in the center of this trapezoidal shape, which he set on his phone, you could see what appeared to be a three-dimensional butterfly, which looked, at all angles, it looked 3D. So it does work. Holographic images are certainly possible, and they're not quite as expensive as you might think, but they're not so inexpensive that they're going to be on the fronts of different businesses in small towns like Pine Valley. Sorry, but again, that's just how it is. It's not quite affordable enough. That's kind of a problem, though, with a lot of visions of the future, is we see high tech being everywhere. And the fact of the matter is high tech is really expensive. I mean, we have great stuff today. We have amazing technology today, but you're not going to be seeing it in Times Square. You're certainly not going to be seeing it on a market street downtown. As much as I wish that was true, it's just not going to happen. Not right now, anyway, because high tech is highly expensive. That's just how it is. Now, we can talk about how we all have smartphones, and those are very high-tech objects where the processors have transistors which are mere atoms apart. But again, that is high tech, but it's also inexpensive to create relatively. So yeah, it's all about expense. If it's expensive, if I'm rubbing my thumb between my two forefingers here, if that's the problem, then it ain't gonna happen. Because it has to be inexpensive and look cool and be marketable for it to exist. And if it's not any of those things, it's probably not going to be a thing. So giant holographic sharks lunging at us to advertise the next big Jaws movie, not very likely today in 2015. But again, our vision of the future inspires our today. And we are seeing that every single day with all these different technologies. Now, I don't know if it's fortunate or not that Blade Runner did not inspire our today, because 2019 is coming up soon, and Blade Runner is my favorite movie. So in 4 years, we'd better have replicants, and in 4 years, we'd better have flying cars that everyone drives, and in 4 years, we'd better have rounds we better have handguns which shoot depleted uranium rounds that explode in a small mushroom cloud when you shoot somebody with them. We better have those things, or else I will be really mad. We also need to have holographic photos, but that's sort of almost a thing now. That's almost a thing now. Holographic photos, almost. But anyway, our vision of the future shapes our today, and that's a good thing, actually, because in a lot of ways it pushes creativity, because we create things on the screen which are uber creative and just so cool looking, and then it inspires the tech people who say, hey, that could actually be done, and it gets made. Think about prosthetics. Oh man, Star Wars, right? Star Wars, 1977 is when Star Wars came out, and in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke's hand gets cut off. And that was in 1980, I believe, is when that movie came out. Luke's hand just gets lopped off, and he gets a prosthetic hand that seems to operate just as well as a regular hand. That's really cool, and that's almost here. Now, granted, maybe Star Wars is a poor example because it does happen a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, not actually in the future. Yet still, I really want to have a prosthetic hand that actually operates better than the hand I have today. That might not actually be possible, but I really want one. I saw a TED Talk the other day. I say the other day, but I actually mean a few months ago. I saw a TED Talk where a company had created, I believe it was actually osseointegrated, but I'm not sure, prosthetics that operated just as well as real feet. And this guy could jog around. This woman could dance like she hadn't been able to before. Amazing technology. And it doesn't take that long to learn either. And it's powered with a battery that lasts for all day. You can't go wrong. It's amazing technology that we're pumping out today. So don't be pessimistic about the future in a lot of ways, because there's not a whole lot to be pessimistic about when it comes to the progression of technology. Tech is moving forward at a great pace, and we're getting great stuff out of it. Think about how medicine has improved just in the last 10 years. Cancer fatality rates have gone down significantly, and that's great. Our studies into skin regeneration have become really interesting. We're using 3D printing to 3D print new organs, for heaven's sake. We 3D printed out of connective tissue a heart and then grew it. How cool is that? It can be done, and it can be done today. And maybe in 10 years, it can be done for anyone. So maybe you have lung cancer and you need new lungs. For a not terribly expensive price comparatively, you could have 3D printed lungs made custom for you out of cells from you. There's no worry of rejection. That could be very soon happening. Very soon happening. That could be happening very soon. The future is crazy in a good way. The future is wild. Now, because we are of our political slant here at Hot News Talk Radio, a lot of people in our political slant tend to be very pessimistic about the future. And I see no reason for that, honestly. Maybe short-term things aren't going to be amazing, but long-term, if you look at political trends and if you look at technological trends, things are actually really great. Things are amazing, especially if you look at how bad things were before, not even just 30 years ago. Think about how polio was a big problem in the 40s. Lots of people had polio. Who has polio now? Not many people. Think about the horrible tuberculosis was going around. Who has tuberculosis nowadays? And even if you do get tuberculosis, it can be treated. It's not like you have to go to a sanitarium anymore. It's great. And again, cancer is treatable now. It's not like cancer is a death warrant nowadays. It still can be, but not always. A very close friend of mine has a rare problem in his kidneys, and it's Strauss something disease. I always forget the second part, but I always want to say Strauss-Kahn, but that's not quite correct. He's got a really bad problem with his kidneys, and he's one of the younger people to ever get it. And he probably wouldn't survive without current day medical technology. If this was 1950, he'd probably be dead. And I don't want my friend to be dead. So technology is really helping us out today. And again, I know lots of people who have had horrible, horrible medical problems where it would essentially be the end of them. They would wither away and die, and that would be the end. And we don't have to worry about that nearly as much as we did before, thanks to current day technology and thanks to progressions in technological research. So things are not nearly as bad today as sometimes we are led to believe. Things are kind of great, actually. Yeah, political trends tend to go some ways that we don't want them to on both sides. But again, we ourselves are living rather comfortably, and we're living in not squalor. Food is everywhere. It's not the most nutritional food, but again, you're not going to die of starvation most likely here in the US, and things are not so bad, actually, when you look at it, really. Maybe we should be a little bit more optimistic when looking towards the future. Maybe we should be a little bit more optimistic when we're looking at the future of technology. Well, hey, a big acquisition just took place. Western Digital has purchased SanDisk in a $19 billion deal. Yes, $19 billion. Western Digital currently is known for manufacturing hard drives. It's sort of the main competitor to Seagate. Seagate makes hard drives, Western Digital makes hard drives, and there's a lot of contention over which one is the best one. I won't throw my hat in that ring because I don't really have enough experience with buying new hard drives to say, which is kind of weird especially considering how inexpensive they are. But I'll just say, buy what you think is the best product. Do your research before you buy a hard drive, because hard drives change like every 6 months anyway. So it just depends on the season, really. Hard drive quality is sort of seasonal almost. But anyway, a hard disk maker, Western Digital, has said that it's going to be buying SanDisk Corporation in a deal that's valued at about $19 billion in order to help expand its business, which makes flash memory storage chips, which are used in smartphones and mobile devices. Now, SanDisk, of course, is known for SD cards mainly. If you buy an SD card, chances are it's a SanDisk SD card. I have one. You probably have one. Lots of people have them. They're everywhere. SanDisk is known for flash memory chips, especially non-volatile flash memory. It's just, I can't really say anything bad about SanDisk as far as I know. I've had some failures, but I mean, that happens. I don't blame the manufacturer most of the time for a failure because it happens. That's the thing. Like, it happens. I'm sure if I wasn't too lazy to call them, they'd send me a new disc. So again, it happens. It's just something that happens. But anyway, SanDisk shares rose as much as $78.48 on Wednesday. But now they are about $86.50 right now. SanDisk shares may be trading below the offer price because investors were likely looking for a 52-week high takeout price. Wedbush securities analyst Betsy Van Hees said SanDisk is sharing a 52-week high of $106.64 on December the 8th. So Western Digital going to be purchasing SanDisk. Certainly an interesting move, although not really unprecedented. It's not surprising that a hard drive manufacturer would buy a solid-state memory manufacturer. This just means Western Digital is probably going to be coming out with really good solid-state drives, or at least solid-state drives. SanDisk has already made solid-state drives, so this could mean that prices will be going down if the two houses merge. We'll have to see. But anyway, remember Ahmed Muhammad, the kid who made the clock? Well, I put made in quotes because he didn't really make a clock as much as he took apart one and put it in a pencil case, but okay, give the kid some credit. Less than 24 hours after Ahmed Muhammad met with the president, his family decided that it was time to leave. And I don't just mean Texas. I mean, it's time to leave the U.S. The 14-year-old Texas boy who was arrested for bringing to school a homemade clock, which authorities said resembled a bomb, will soon be living in Qatar. After careful consideration of all the generous offers received, we would like to announce that we have accepted a kind offer from Qatar Foundation for Education, Science, and Community Development, or QF, for Ahmed to join the prestigious QF Young Innovators Program, which reflects the organization's ongoing dedication to empowering young people and fostering a culture of innovation and creativity, the family said in a news release on Tuesday. So, yeah, Ahmed Muhammad is going to be going to Qatar over in the, I don't recall if Qatar is actually in the Middle East or if it's in Africa, because I am really bad at remembering geography. Nonetheless, he's moving to that particular country. I wish him the best, to be quite frank with you. He seems like a nice kid. I wish him the best. I got no ill will towards Ahmed Muhammad. I mean, again, he seems like a nice enough kid. Perhaps a little bit misguided in his in his things which he says, because I don't think he's ever actually designed a processor. Maybe he's way smarter than I think he is, but you say things to the media. That's just how it is. Again, well, if you watched movies on Popcorn Time, unfortunately, you cannot do that anymore. The browser version of Popcorn Time is shutting down after just a couple of days online. Browser Popcorn launched this weekend as a way to stream pirated movies and TV shows from the web, and it began receiving quite a bit of attention last night. Since then, the site's owner, who's identified himself as an actual 15-year-old named Milan, I'm sorry, Mr. Milan, Mr. Mulan Krajujevic, I believe. Pardon. He says that he's received a cease and desist order from the MPAA. The MPAA is also said to have gone after his domain registrar and hosting provider, which leads the young man to switch the site from one domain to another earlier today. Despite Krajujevic's quick reaction to keep the service online as recently as this morning, he has now decided to call it quits and shut down the piracy site. Oh well. So if you watch movies on Popcorn Time, you can no more. You know, it's funny because I call him a young man. He's 15. He's only 5 years younger than me, which is actually funny considering that Clutch with Keon Rose is coming up next, and I'm 5 years younger than him. So I wonder if he would call me young man. I kind of doubt it, but the age difference is the same. So the difference between me and a 15-year-old is the same as the age difference between me and Keon. That's weird to think about, but I'm a very mature young man is the difference. Or maybe Keon's really immature. I don't know. His show is Clutch with Keon Rose. It's a great show. We love it over here. I listen to it even though I'm not really that into sports. So that tells you something about how good it is. His show is Clutch with Keon Rose coming up next here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. Don't forget to listen to us on the TuneIn Radio app if you're just stepping out of your car or out of your office. Don't listen to your office if it disrupts your productivity, though. If it does, don't tell anyone. Listen to us at Hot News Talk Radio and hotnewstalkradio.com. Also on your TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone. Watch us on YouTube, too. Just go to YouTube and then search for Hot News Talk Radio to watch us streaming live there as well. And Clutch with Keon Rose is up next. Don't forget to listen to the news at 5 with Hot News Live at 5 right here on Hot News Talk Radio.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.